Why do people lie even when they know it's wrong? Chapter 1. The House Made of Threads. On a hot morning in a city that has forgotten how to pause, a man named Leon typed, "I'm 2 minutes away," even though he was still barefoot in his kitchen, watching the kettle consider boiling. The message lifted from his phone with the weightlessness of a sigh. He set the device down, poured water over coffee, and told himself it wasn't a lie, not really. 2 minutes, 20 minutes time is soft, meetings are cruel, and his boss is harsher when he is honest. He swallowed the coffee like a contract and hurried toward the door. If you judged Leon by the shape of that morning, you would say he's a liar. If you judged him by what he loves, a 4-year-old daughter who sleeps with both hands clenched into dreams, a mother who leaves him voicemails full of songs from a language he hasn't spoken since childhood, you might search for another word, a gentler one, a fib, a dodge, a cushion for impact. We make these distinctions because the truth, when delivered raw, sometimes feels like a stone thrown into a glass room. But whether we call it a fib or a cushion, it is still an art of rearranging reality so that it lands where we want it to. Why do people lie even when they know it's wrong? The answer is not a single idea, but a house built from many thin threads. Some are bright, some are dark, and all of them are pulled tight by forces we rarely stop to name. A lie can be a rope bridge over a ravine, a quick way from fear to safety. It can also be the rope that tangles around your feet. It can be a costume we put on to survive the party, and it can be the costume we forget to take off when we go home. In this chapter, we will walk through the rooms of that house, touching each thread, the ones we inherit, the ones we spin ourselves until the shape of our deception becomes, if not less damning, at least more understandable. Start with the old brain, the one that whispered to our ancestors when the wind carried the scent of a predator. Hide. Don't be seen. Our nervous systems are archivists of catastrophe. They save every page where danger appears. When a threat enters the room, an angry boss, a jealous lover, the prospect of rejection, the old brain reaches for whatever tool works fastest. Sometimes that tool is a lie, not because we are immoral, but because we are wired to survive the next 5 minutes before we can plan for the next 5 years. If you have ever heard your heart knock on the inside of your ribs when someone asks, "Is there anything you want to tell me?" you have felt this old electricity. You have also felt how quickly a lie can act like a switch that turns off the alarm. Fear is an efficient apprenticeship in dishonesty. As children, we learn that certain truths cause storms. Spilled milk earns a scolding, broken vases a raised voice, violated curfews a slammed door. We test the world with trial deceptions, and we discover that sometimes a lie restores the sky to blue. Telling the truth becomes a kind of bravery for which we are not always rewarded. The child becomes a teenager who learns to edit the parts of himself that attract lightning. The teenager becomes an adult who tells himself, "I'm just protecting them," while also protecting the most fragile parts of himself. But fear isn't the only teacher. Shame plays the violin of lying with a virtuoso's precision. Shame isn't, "I did something bad." It is, "I am bad." And that extra word, the pronoun that swallows a person whole, creates an intimacy with hiding. If I believe I am fundamentally unworthy, then the truth is a searchlight that must be dodged. I will lie not simply to avoid consequences, but to protect the last unbroken picture I have of myself. This is the reason that confession is so frightening. It's not only that we fear what others will do to us, we fear what the truth will do to the story we're telling about who we are. If fear is the lockpick, shame is the mask, and the mask can be exquisite. It is made of competence when we feel incompetent, kindness when we're tired, certainty when we're lost. We lie because we want to be believed, and belief is a kind of love. The truth risks disapproval. The lie offers applause. But applause has a cruel contract. It isn't for you, only for the mask. Keep the mask on, the contract says, or we take the music away. Many of us, hungry for that music, learn to sleep in our masks. There is also reward, simple, transactional, and fiercely persuasive. A lie can pay well. It can save money, win an account, get us hired, get us elected, preserve a relationship for one more month. Our brains are bartering animals. They weigh short-term gain against long-term cost and often choose the sweet fruit within reach. We know the fruit is stolen. We know the tree is not ours. We take it anyway because hunger has eloquence. I'll pay for this later, we promise, but later is a country without roads. We rarely arrive. Beyond fear and shame and reward, there is habit. A lie told once can feel like a door we might use again. The next lie comes easier, and the one after that easier still, until the brain lays down a small path called How I Handle This. Our nervous systems love paths. They reward us with the feeling of competence when we walk a familiar one. In this way, lying becomes not an ethical crisis, but a choreography we perform without thinking. Months pass, years. We wake up mid-step, mid-sentence, deep into a pattern we didn't intend to choreograph. Then there is love, the most paradoxical teacher of all. People lie because they care about others. They tell white lies to protect feelings, to sustain hope, to preserve harmony in rooms where truth might shatter delicate glass. A woman who hates her friend's new haircut says, "It looks great," because the alternative invites tears. A son tells his mother he's fine because her blood pressure spikes when he's not. A doctor who knows a patient's prognosis is poor softens the numbers because numbers can be knives. These lies feel like kindness. Are they wrong? The question is less comfortable than we expect. Sometimes the truth is a medicine that must be given in careful doses. But sometimes the lie is a sugar that delays the treatment until the cure becomes impossible. A story. A husband, Mark, stands in a kitchen at midnight. The light from the refrigerator outlines him in a blue rectangle. His wife, Lila, is asleep upstairs. He has been texting an old girlfriend for 3 weeks. Nothing explicit, nothing you could take to court, but enough warmth to melt the boundary between friendship and its next-door neighbor. When Lila asked earlier, "Is everything okay?" he said, "Just work stress." He knows this is wrong. He knows that one day he will have to say the real words and watch them burn the air between them. But the lie buys him another night in a world where both things are true. He loves his wife, and he loves how being wanted makes his hands remember their purpose. He closes the fridge without eating. The hunger he feels is not for food. Sometimes we lie because the world has made the truth expensive. Consider institutions that punish whistleblowers, workplaces where metrics matter more than meaning, families where secrets are currency. In such places, integrity is less a virtue than a liability. The person who tells the truth becomes a nail. The culture becomes a hammer. We know this. We adapt accordingly. And because we are a storytelling species, we narrate our adaptation as necessity rather than cowardice. That's just how it is, we say, as if we are reciting the weather. We confuse the climate for the sky. And then there is a deeper scandal. We lie to ourselves first. If every outward deception is a mask, self-deception is the makeup that makes the mask feel like skin. We rationalize. We rename. We remember selectively. I didn't exactly lie, we say. I just didn't mention it. I bend the truth because I care more. If I told the truth, they couldn't handle it. Each sentence is a bead on a rosary we finger in the cathedral of our own justification. Self-deception numbs the part of us that would otherwise sound the alarm. When you can anesthetize your conscience, you can perform surgery without shaking. But there is a cost. Lying breaks the world into manageable pieces and then, over time, breaks us. Truth is the river that connects our different days. A lie dams it. You wake up in the morning, and the person who greets you in the mirror is not entirely the person you remember being. You are keeping track of multiple yous, the one your friends think you are, the one your partner believes in, the one your colleagues respect, the one you suspect you might be when no one is watching. This bookkeeping is exhausting. Cognitive load, what the researchers call the brain's working budget, gets spent on chronology rather than creativity, on maintenance rather than growth. A person who lies often tends to have less room for joy. Joy requires being carried by life. Deception requires pushing it. Trust is a structure built from brittle materials. Every lie is a temperature change, small perhaps. But if the weather keeps shifting, the structure cracks. Some relationships survive a lie. Some survive many. Yet the survivors often bear a new stiffness, a cautiousness that doesn't vanish even after forgiveness. I have seen marriages become museums of their former tenderness, every artifact preserved behind glass. I have seen business teams smile at one another while measuring distances in their heads. I have seen friendships become polite deserts, where nothing that requires water can grow. The lie creates a new climate, and the climate changes the ecosystems of our lives. Consider another story. A student named Ava is caught cheating on a take-home exam. She is bright, ambitious, and terrified that her immigrant parents' sacrifices will be wasted if she falls short. When the professor emails asking for a meeting, she says to herself, "I only asked my roommate for help." In the department office, she says, "I didn't realize we weren't allowed to collaborate." At night, she says to herself, "I had no choice." Every sentence is a soft blanket over sharp facts. She sleeps, but not well. The next morning she reads her professor's reply, "A second chance with a penalty." She is relieved, grateful. She promises herself she won't do it again. 3 months later, feeling the same pressure, she does. Why? Because the first lie adjusted the interior temperature. It taught her what the room would let her survive. We lie because we live among other people. Our identities are co-authored. You might tell the truth in an empty forest, in a crowded city. You edit. The social animal wants belonging with the urgency of thirst. If a group requires a certain kind of pretending to keep you at the table, many of us will pretend. Culture is a mirror that offers praise to certain faces and not others. If your true face doesn't get applause, the mirror invites you to draw a new one. There is a difference between privacy and falsehood, between discretion and deceit, but the lines blur under fluorescent lights. So far, this is a map of motives. But knowing the map does not stop the feet. Many of us know that lying is wrong and still watch our thumbs type it. We feel, in the body, a quiet civil war. One part of us, the sentinel, wants to guard the gate. Another part, the negotiator, wants to let the threat in, give it tea, and promise it a spare room if it will be kind. Just this once, the negotiator whispers. The sentinel rolls its eyes. Often the negotiator wins because the negotiator speaks in the language of mercy, while the sentinel speaks in the language of rules. Mercy is beautiful. It is also dangerous when it is extended to our worst habits and not to our best possibilities. Let us anchor this conversation with the anatomy of a typical lie. A stimulus arrives, an inquiry, an accusation, an expectation. The nervous system calculates risk. If I tell the truth, what happens? If I lie, what happens? Memory offers precedents. Imagination offers forecasts. Desire offers bias. We choose sometimes so fast that choosing feels like reflex. If the lie proceeds, the body keeps the score. The heart quickens, the mouth dries, the stomach tenses. We may not register these as guilt. We may call them stress. He is. The aftermath begins. Does the world accept the lie? If yes, the brain notes the success. If no, the brain scrambles, stacking new lies on the first, like a child building a tower until it wobbles. This sequence is old. It is also interruptible. But interruption requires recognizing the moment before the moment, the hinge on which choice swings. That hinge is often silent. It is the microsecond between the question and the answer, the inhale before the sentence forms. In that pocket of time, you can feel the currents pulling. One current is fear, they will leave me. Another is pride. I am not the kind of person who makes mistakes. A third is love. I want to spare them pain. A fourth is ambition. I want to win. Naming the current does not neutralize it, but it returns to you a little sovereignty, the way naming a storm can help a city prepare. Here is a practice I have watched save people from their own reflexes, the slowest possible truth. It is a philosophy with two laws. First, tell the truth. Second, tell it at the speed the relationship can safely metabolize. If your partner asks, "Do you still think about your ex?" and your honest answer is, "Yes," the slowest possible truth might sound like, "I do sometimes, and I want to talk about it carefully because I love you and I don't want to hurt you." It is not withholding, it is pacing. It does not disguise the content, it attends to the container. The purpose is dignity, not delay. The purpose is to protect the truth from the violence of a bad delivery. Of course, even this philosophy can be abused. A person who never arrives at the rest of the sentence has not chosen the slowest possible truth, but an indefinitely postponed one. We must be honest about our honesty. If you hear yourself say, "I'm protecting them," ask, from what and for how long? Protection without a timeline is usually control wearing perfume. Let us walk into a different room, the theater of the self. We perform versions of ourselves at work, at home, online, in the quiet cave of our own heads. Lying is often a performance note gone rogue. We exaggerate to appear interesting. We minimize to appear humble. We omit to appear wise. We self-brand. Are these lies? Sometimes, yes. Sometimes they are the small compromises by which society functions. The line is seldom clear. But one test I recommend is this. If your performance forces you to treat someone else as a prop, you have crossed into a lie. If your performance requires you to harm your own values to keep the audience clapping, you are no longer acting. You are vanishing. Another room, the laboratory of language. Words are tools, and like scalpels, they can heal or harm. Many lies are built from technical truths. I didn't sleep with anyone, someone says, omitting everything short of that phrase. The sentence may be accurate in a narrow sense, but accuracy is not the same as honesty. Honesty is saying what a reasonable person would need to hear to understand the reality. A lawyer's precision in a lover's argument is a form of violence. Likewise, a lover's poetry in a courtroom can be obstruction. We must match our language to the purpose at hand. Many of the worst lies are not in the facts, but in the framing. Pause here to consider how forgiveness intersects with deceit. People tell fewer lies when the world allows them to be imperfect without exile. In relationships where confession is met with curiosity rather than immediate condemnation, truth has a fighting chance. This is not an argument for permissiveness toward harm. It is a recognition that shame is gasoline on the fire of hiding. If you wish for more honesty around you, design a life where mistakes can be named without ritual humiliation. You will still be disappointed sometimes, but you will also be surprised by the truths people hand you when they believe you will not weaponize them. We cannot leave this chapter without a mirror. You have lied, so have I. Some of those lies were tiny stitches in the seam of the day. Some were larger, and their seam still hurts when the weather changes. What could we have done differently? Perhaps we could have said, "I need a minute to answer." Perhaps we could have practiced the sentence, "I'm afraid you'll think less of me, but here's what's true." Perhaps we could have drawn boundaries earlier so we wouldn't need to explain our way out of a corner later. Perhaps we could have loved the person we lied to enough to prefer the temporary pain of honesty over the chronic pain of deception. And yet there are readers who grew up in homes where truth was punished, workplaces where honesty was a career suicide note, neighborhoods where survival required camouflage. To them I say, you adapted brilliantly. You are here. You learned how to move through a world that didn't want your full self. The task now is to choose where you still need those adaptations and where you can lay them down. A chameleon's colors are a masterpiece in the jungle. In a garden you own, you can be your native green. Let us return to Leon, the man who was 2 minutes away. He arrived 24 minutes late to a room full of polished faces and screens. The meeting went as meetings do, slides, jargon, the mutual grooming of status. At the end, his boss said, "Next time, just be on time." It was an ordinary afternoon. On the walk back to his desk, Leon read a text from his daughter's daycare. "She fell, but she's okay." He felt a small earthquake in the chest. Suddenly, his 2-minute lie looked silly and sad. He wished he had sent, "I'm running late. I'm sorry." He imagined a world where that sentence did not cost him esteem. He wondered whether he could help build that world around him at work, at home, where the truth isn't an act of heroism, but a habit as unremarkable as breathing. That world is not a fantasy. It is a practice. It is designed, one conversation at a time, by people who refuse to treat honesty as a luxury. It is built by those who speak truths kindly but plainly, who apologize quickly, who do not punish vulnerability with scorn. It is maintained by those who notice when they are tempted to lie and ask themselves, "What am I protecting? Is there another way?" It is advanced by those who refuse the delicious simplifications of self-deception, who would rather feel the sharpness of reality than the soft, slow suffocation of a false life. One last story before we close this first chapter. A woman named Rana had been inflating her freelance hours for years. 10 minutes here, 15 there, soon the billing grew a second shadow. She told herself it compensated for unpaid emails, for the invisible work of networking, for clients who treated deadlines as suggestions but invoices as jokes. One evening, in a quiet apartment full of houseplants, she looked at her spreadsheet and felt a fatigue she could not tidy away. She wrote to her clients, "I've been rounding up in ways that aren't right," she said. "I'm going to redo the last quarter's invoices." She did not sleep well that week, but the following month her work felt lighter. She paid back a sum that hurt, switched to fixed project pricing where she could, and learned to say no to clients who measured respect in pennies. She was not cured. She still felt the old impulse in moments of scarcity, but something in her had turned toward a different sky. She had chosen a life where the numbers matched reality, where her own name sounded truer in her mouth. We lie even when we know it's wrong because we are afraid, because we are ashamed, because we are hungry, because we are loyal, because we are practiced, because we are built for belonging, because we are capable of believing our own edits. None of this absolves us. It does, perhaps, allow us to approach ourselves with precision rather than self-hatred. Precision is a better teacher than shame. It says, "Here is the moment you tend to choose the easy thing. Here is what that choice protects. Here is what it costs. Here is how to build a life where the better choice becomes a little easier, not because you're a saint, but because your world is arranged for it." In the next chapter, we will move from anatomy to repair. How to unlearn the choreography of deception, how to speak hard truths without burning the room down, how to rebuild trust in places where the climate has already changed. For now, I leave you with a small experiment to try between now and then. Once a day, choose a sentence that scares you because it is true, and speak it kindly. Watch what happens to them, yes, but more importantly, to you. The rope bridge you've used for years may not be the only way across. There might be a solid path, invisible until you step onto it. Chapter 2. The Geography of Repair. The morning after the meeting, Leon opened his laptop to the bruise-colored light of a rainy day and wrote the email he had been avoiding his entire working life. Subject: Today's tardiness. I was late, and I lied about it. I'm sorry. I'd like to be on time and truthful going forward. If you're open, I want to talk about what expectations I've been afraid of. I'll also build in a 20-minute buffer on mornings I'm dropping my daughter at daycare. Thanks for the chance to do this better. He read it twice, felt his stomach scoff "This will cost you," and pressed send anyway. The email left, and the room felt, for a moment, like an honest instrument after months of playing out of tune. Meanwhile, in a quiet house where the refrigerator light still remembered midnight, Mark poured 2 cups of tea, set them on the table, and told Lila the truth. He did not soften it into something that could pass as weather. He told her about the messages, the warm fog of nostalgia, the ache it soothed and the ache it caused. He did not beg for absolution, nor did he hide inside a biography of his own loneliness. He used short sentences with verbs inside them. He watched the room break and then hold. When he finished, the tea had gone cold. Their marriage, warm as a hand, had stepped out into a kind winter where the air stung but did not kill. If chapter 1 was an anatomy, muscle, and motive, this is a map. Not the kind with highways pre-printed and towns named after the people who won the wars. A hand-drawn map. The kind you make while walking, with landmarks like Old Oak where the wind changes and Bridge of Rope that held once. Repair is local and handmade. It does not arrive as a package. It is stitched from verbs. You wanted an answer to the question, why do people lie even when they know it's wrong? We answered, fear, shame, reward, habit, love, the world's bad incentives, the body's old alarms. But knowledge alone is not emancipation. Repair begins when you turn a reason into a choice, and then turn that choice into a practice. Let us name a practice. The 4 R's. Recognize, reveal, repair, rebuild. Recognize is the hinge, a felt click in the body when you are about to leave the path. Reveal is the decision to say the slowest possible truth without disguising it as something else. Repair is the art of apologizing without hiring a defense attorney to stand at the podium of your mouth. Rebuild is the engineering of a life that doesn't ask you to lie to keep it standing. These are simple words. They are not easy. Recognize. The hinge. The hinge is so brief you could mistake it for a blink. The question lands, where were you last night? Did you send the report? Are you happy? And your nervous system offers a pre-written sentence. The sentence often begins with no, or I was just, or it's not that. Recognition is the willingness to notice the sentence before it escapes. Practicalities. Install a pause. In conversation, practice saying, let me think for a second. The world will not end in those 3 seconds. It might restart. Track your tells. You have them. The tongue wets your lips. Your hand finds your neck. Your eyes flick left. Your humor gets sharp. Your voice too smooth. Map your tells as if you were learning the signs of weather. Oh, there I go, the wind from the west. Ask a quiet question. What am I trying not to feel? Do I need protection or courage right now? Am I hiding or am I choosing privacy? The difference, privacy keeps what is yours. Hiding withholds what is theirs. Reveal the slowest possible truth. The slowest possible truth has 3 parts. The fact, the feeling, the future. The fact is the thing itself, stated without legalese or embroidery. I missed the deadline. I've been texting someone in a way that's not okay. I said I read the book. I didn't. End of band. The feeling is what your body knows. I'm ashamed. I'm scared you'll leave. I feel small, and I bought a bigger story. The future is your intention, not your prophecy. I want to do this differently. I am ready to be accountable and to listen. I'm going to set up a system so this doesn't keep happening. A reveal fails when it swaps any of the 3 for a disguise. The fact gets wrapped in a story. The feeling gets outsourced as blame. The future gets inflated into a guarantee. The truth is a living thing, not a marketing deck. Repair. The apology without a but. We are not taught how to apologize. We are taught how to avoid lawsuits. A true apology is not a submission. It is a re-entry into the real. Its anatomy looks like this. Name the harm specifically. Not, I'm sorry for what happened, but I'm sorry I told you I was at home when I was at the bar. Take ownership without weather words. Things got hectic. Mistakes were made. Use I and did. Acknowledge impact, not just intent. I can see how that scared you, wasted your time, made you feel alone, cost you money. Offer amends. Ask, what would make this right, or at least better? Suggest concrete steps. Reimburse, rework, inform the people misled, step back from roles you abused. Promise a boundary, not a halo. I will not message her again. If I feel the urge, I will tell you first. I will not pad hours. If I'm tempted, I'll renegotiate scope. I will not claim certainty I don't have. If I don't know, I'll say so. Invite dialogue and accept their timeline. You don't have to forgive me today. I'm here to listen. Things to avoid are well known but worth inscribing. The word but, it erases the apology's math. The weaponized tear. Feeling is welcome. Performance is theft. The counter-accusation, well, you also, is a grenade in the hospital. Rebuild. Systems that don't require masks. You cannot white-knuckle your way into integrity against the architecture of your life. If your incentives ask you to edit reality to keep your place at the table, you will either begin lying again or stop eating. Rebuild means you adjust incentives, environments, roles, and rituals so the truth has somewhere to sit. At work, audit the gap between values and rewards. If the slide deck says candor, but promotions go to those who decorate numbers, you've built a stage for deceit. Change the reward. Celebrate error reports that prevent bigger failures. Promote those who surface risks early. Build postmortems that are blameless in tone and exacting in content. Replace "who messed up" with "what in our system made this likely," without erasing the person's agency. Both and at home, build rituals for small truths so big truths have a runway. A Sunday night 10-minute truth check, where each person shares one thing they pretended about during the week and one thing they were proud to say plainly. An I don't know jar where grown-ups and children alike drop a coin each time they say the phrase out loud, and once a month you buy something delightful with the pile proof that humility funds beauty. In friendships, agree to a rule. Caution beats gossip. If you're talking about a third friend's harmful behavior, ask what you'll say to them. And by when, if you wouldn't say it to their face, write it in a letter you might one day deliver. If you won't, change the subject or call it what it is: collusion with a future lie. Self-deception, detox. The longest war a liar fights is with their own story. You cannot repair on the outside what remains edited on the inside. Begin with paper and a pen. Draw 3 columns: story, facts, unknowns. Story. I had to lie because my boss is unreasonable. Facts. I was late 3 times in 2 weeks. I texted 2 minutes away while shoeless. My boss has said punctuality matters. Unknowns. Would honesty have cost me a project? Would a buffer have helped? Now draw arrows from story to facts. Circle the gaps. Ask, what else could be true? Whose voice is this? Practice a daily question. What am I optimizing for? Survival, approval, comfort, excellence, belonging, novelty. If you are optimizing for approval, every room becomes a mirror. If you are optimizing for belonging, every wall looks like a door you should sand your edges to fit through. Choose carefully. Clarity about the target makes lying less efficient, because the shortcut no longer goes where you're headed. Find a person who will red team your narrative. Give them permission to ask impolite questions. What are you not telling me? What part of this makes you feel superior? What evidence would change your mind? Let their questions be a bench press for your honesty. Write a page that begins, The truth I refuse to say aloud is, burn it if you must, but say it to the page first. The body knows what you won't put in ink. It will symptom until you listen. Scripts for the tender moments. To a partner, I want to say something that scares me. I minimize something important because I was afraid of your disappointment. The fact is, I feel ashamed and protective. I want to tell you the whole story and hear how it lands. I won't defend myself while you speak. To a boss, I said X to cover Y. That was dishonest. The cost is Z. Here's what I'll do now. I expect you may be frustrated. I'm open to consequences. I prefer to be held to a standard I can respect. To a friend, I said I was fine. I wasn't. I didn't want to bring the room down or risk being the needy one. The truth is, if you're up for it, I'd love to practice sharing the messy middle with each other. To a client, I represented hours that weren't entirely accurate because I've been afraid to set boundaries. I'm correcting the invoice and moving to a pricing model that reflects the work. If that means you prefer another partner, I'll understand, and I'll make the handoff smooth. To a child, I told you we might go to the park, and I knew we probably wouldn't. That wasn't fair. When I make a promise, I should keep it. And when I don't know, I should say, I don't know. Today we can't. Tomorrow we can, for 30 minutes. Do you want to set a timer with me? The point is not perfect phrasing, but calibrated courage. Facts first, feelings owned, futures grounded, consequences, and courage. The cynic will ask, what about the truths that punish? The dangerous family, the vindictive boss, the government office that turns whistleblowers into warnings. Repair is not martyrdom. It is wisdom with a spine. If the truth will cost you safety, you do not owe your blood to the altar of transparency. You owe yourself a plan. Document privately. Seek counsel. Find a collective. Tell the truth to those who can protect it until it can protect others. Secrecy in service of safety is not deceit, it is strategy. The line between secrecy and lying remains. Do not claim what is not so. Do not smear those you have not confronted, but you may refuse to offer your neck. Forgiveness deserves its own geography. Forgiveness is not a shortcut through accountability. It is a road you might eventually reach. It says, I will stop using your worst moment as the definition of you. It does not say, we will be as we were. Reconciliation is optional. Boundaries are mandatory. You are allowed to forgive and to prohibit re-entry. You are allowed to forgive and to require supervision of the parts that once harmed you. Forgiveness without wisdom is an unlocked door in a bad neighborhood. Case studies continued. Leon's boss replied mid-afternoon, thanks for owning it. Buffer is smart. Let's also make the 9 a.m. status call. Exactly 9 minutes starts on the minute, ends on the minute. Everyone will be more honest about time if we prove that we are. As for expectations, let's talk Friday. At home that week, Leon experimented with sentences he would have once considered impossible. When the daycare text came again, she fell. She's okay. He left the office without theater. He said to his team, I'm heading out. That's the most true I can be right now. I'll make up the work later, and if later isn't enough, we'll readjust scope. No one fired him. A junior engineer looked relieved, as if someone had opened a window in a stale room. Mark and Lila did not transform into saints. They stumbled. There were days Lila wanted to search his phone, and days she didn't want to be hugged. They made a ritual of one question: what's the hardest thing to tell me today? Sometimes the answer was about the old messages. Sometimes it was ordinary. I resented you for leaving dishes. They built a spreadsheet not to surveil, but to soothe, that tracked small truths told each day. The cells filled. Trust did not return as a choir. It returned as a single voice, off-key at first, then steadier. Ava, the student, met her professor with her 3-column page. Here's the story I told myself. Here are the facts. Here's what I don't know, she said. The professor, who had grown tired of polished pleas, looked at the columns and saw a mind in repair. They designed a pact. For the remainder of the semester, Ava would submit a brief after each assignment. What she understood, where she struggled, what temptations she faced, what choices she made. At graduation, she spoke not about triumph over adversity, but about the arithmetic of honesty, how integrity is compound interest on small choices. Rana continued to invoice cleanly and, astonishingly, earned more the following year. She had not counted on the tax of self-contempt. Removing it was like finding an envelope of cash she didn't know she'd lost. She started a monthly salon with other freelancers called No Halo, where they read their messiest sentences to each other and practice trading embarrassment for precision. Culture. As a truth machine, if you run a team, you are an engineer of climate. Build a no-surprise agreement. Bad news rides first class. Reward the messenger. Replace performance theater with dashboards whose numbers are unflattering before they are optimized. Teach people how to say, "I was wrong," without being fed to the wolves. Hold retrospectives that are both surgical and humane. Start with, what did we intend? What actually happened? What did we learn? What one thing will we change? End with appreciations that name specifics. When you admitted your bug early, it saved us 3 days. Thank you. Courage grows where it is named. If you lead a family, design honesty with tenderness. Establish the distinction early. Privacy versus secrecy. Privacy says, "This is mine, and I'll share it when I'm ready." Secrecy says, "This is yours too, and I'm keeping it from you to control the outcome." The difference is consent. Teach a child to say, "I need privacy," and mean it. Teach a partner to say, "Is this privacy or secrecy?" and listen. Friend groups can adopt simple rules. When a conflict arises, speak to the person, not about them. If you're tempted to cancel with a flourish of excuses, try the sentence, "I overcommitted. I need to stay home tonight." You will lose some status with the theater critics and gain intimacy with those who prefer a real evening to a brilliant lie. The inner shift. There is a part of you that is a warden stern, punitive, obsessed with violations. There is another part that is a gardener observant, patient, focused on conditions that allow the truth to grow. If you let the warden run your honesty, you will simply trade lying for self-flagellation. You will closet your errors in a new shame. If you let the gardener lead, you will design better soil. Rest, clear commitments, right-sized ambition, rooms where you are loved for what you are not performing. Practice clarity over charisma. Charisma is a wonderful spice. It is also a superb solvent. It can dissolve your own awareness of when you've drifted into a performance. Clarity says, "This is what I know. This is what I don't. This is where I am biased. This is where I'm afraid." Watch what happens when you narrate these 4 sentences before you begin a hard conversation. The other person's nervous system will step out of its fighting stance to listen. Practice clean exits. A lie blossoms where we cannot bear the difficulty of departure. If a job is killing you, the honest sentence is, I need to leave. If a project no longer aligns, I'm choosing to stop. If a friendship requires your self-erasure, I love what we were. I can't do what we are. Clean exits are messy in the short term. They compost into a life that doesn't require disguises. The 7-Day Honesty Challenge. Day 1. Notice, write down every moment you considered lying, from the dramatic to the tiny, I said I liked the playlist. Do nothing, just notice. Day 2. Pause. Add a breath before any answer to a direct question. Even, how are you? Deserves a second of consideration. Day 3. One hard truth. Tell one sentence you've been avoiding to one person who can bear it. Make it specific. Make it kind. Day 4. Repair. Choose one past lie, recent or old. Apologize using the anatomy. No halos, no buts. Day 5. Boundary. Say no without a story. I can't. I'm not able to take that on. That's a no for me. Watch your urge to explain. Let it pass. Day 6. System. Change one small incentive that invites you to lie. Buffer your schedule. Move to transparent pricing. Turn off read receipts that turn you into a weather forecaster. Day 7. Reflection. Write about the costs you feared and the costs you actually paid, the relief you expected and the relief you felt. Choose a second week if you like. Habits form where attention returns. Epilogue with windows. Let us return to the house from chapter 1, the one woven from threads of fear and shame and hunger and love. Keep it on the street. Do not burn it down. Thread is how we survived, but add windows. Add a front door that opens. Add a table where you can set the tea and say, here is the part that hurts, without treating the listener as a judge or a god. Invite people who prefer the draft of reality to the still air of performance. Truth is not a weapon. It is a climate. Under it, you can grow. Under it, you can fail and still be allowed back into the room. Under it, the person in the mirror begins to look like someone you would introduce to your child with pride. People lie even when they know it's wrong because the world and the body have taught them it works until it doesn't, because the shortcut is illuminated and the path is hidden, because the mask claps louder than the face. We repair by choosing the path in the small minutes, by designing lives that do not tax our integrity, by giving and seeking forms of love that do not require disguise. The last image is simple. A bridge, not of rope, but of wood you have planed yourself. It is not fancy. It creaks honestly. You cross it at dusk, carrying nothing you cannot name. On the other side is not sainthood. It is a Tuesday where your promises are sized to your hands, where your sentences have verbs you respect, where your daughter asks, are you almost home? And you say 20 minutes, and she believes you and you are. You put the key in the door. The house is warm. The windows are open. The truth moves through it like a breeze. You realize that you can breathe too, and you do.